All right, welcome everybody here to our July 16th tag meeting where we are going to be working for approval of our reports to our committees. Just for everybody to know, we have a new chair here today, Dan Young, and I see him online. Dan, if you wouldn't mind popping on and give a quick introduction, and we'll get the show on the road.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I guess now. It's been a long day already. My name's Dan Young. I'm actually the Kittitas County Fire Marshal. Was given the position, excited to be here. I know you guys have done a lot of the hard work already, so I'm kind of like a blister. I show up when the work's done. So anyway, I'm happy to be here, and I'll turn it back over to you, Dustin.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and kick off the meeting with a roll call, and I will count Dan Young as present. Roger Hiringa. I believe he may pop in intermittently here today, but we'll mark him down as not here for the moment. For the architect primary, Ning Wang. I believe we have a message from her stating she will join a little bit later around 2. For the architect alternate, Jacob Liddycoat.
Here.
Thank you. For the building official primary, Quinn Tai, I believe he's going to be absent. And for the building official alternate, Ray Shipman.
I am here.
Thank you. For fire official, fire marshal primary, Ken Brulette. I'm not seeing him in the room just yet. For cities and counties primary, Hugo Sotelo.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. For the home builders and affordable housing developer primary, Mike Nykram. I'm not seeing him in the room. For general contractor developer primary, Bill Mybush.
Present.
Thank you. For the manufacturer supplier primary, Ricky Campbell.
Present.
Thank you. For fire protection engineer primary, Walker Danucci.
Present. Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you. For the alternate, Dave Kokot.
Present.
Thank you. For fire sprinkler industry primary, Sean Morgan.
Present.
Thank you. For the alternate, Kevin Marr. Not seeing him in the attendees list today. For general public subject matter expert primary, Samir Mokashi. Not seeing him in the attendees list here today. For the alternate, Seth Henderson.
Present.
Thank you. For fire alarm industry primary, David Mao.
Present.
Thank you. For the alternate, Zachary Tuck.
Present.
Thank you. And for fire chief primary, Lance Dahl.
Present.
Thank you. With that, we have a quorum here today. And next on our agenda will be review and approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Ray Shipman.
Thank
I will
you.
second Walker.
Any further discussion on today's agenda? All right, seeing no hands, hearing no voices, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next on our agenda is to review and approve the minutes from our last fire tag meeting, which was in June 11th. And here we go. All right, that's the end of the minutes. Does anybody want to go over any specific sections? If not, we're in a position to entertain a motion for the approval of these minutes.
Dustin, this is Ricky. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Second, this is
Walker.
Bill.
Bill, I'll count you on that one. Any further discussion on the minutes from June 11th? All those in favor of approving the minutes from June 11th, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are approved. That'll bring us to item number 4 on our agenda today, which is public comments on items not on the agenda. So if anybody in the audience would like to speak on something that we don't have on our agenda today, please use the raise your hand function and we will give you the floor. And seeing no hands coming up, I believe we will move on past that one. And that brings us to item number 5, which is reviewing and approving the existing amendments and significant changes reports. So just a quick update on what we got here. We sent these out middle of the day yesterday to everybody. The stuff that was sent out is all compiled from the reports that we have worked so hard on over the last several tag meetings. And the content is essentially the same. It may be formatted a little bit differently. And I have those prepared here today that we can just kind of run through them. And I guess as far as a way to review the entire code book at once, I was kind of hoping that folks who had sections assigned to them maybe took a chance or took a moment to look at the sections they had assigned just to go over them. And for starting off, I'm going to go with the existing amendments report. And I'm going to ask if anybody has any sections that they would specifically like to visit before we maybe go on a more organized approach. All right. So nobody's raising their hands. Nobody's unmuted except for Ricky. I mean, we could potentially approve this report as a whole right now. Does anybody want to make a motion to do that, or do we want to run through section by section and just kind of scroll through it and see if anybody has any thing they want to talk about? I don't have a concise plan for how to attack this. Just about a 66-page document here showing all the existing amendments. So I guess if nobody's going to raise hands or anything, I will start scrolling through. I don't plan to touch on every section in here. And hopefully we can move through and get this one done here in a small amount of time. Does that sound good to the group?
That sounds good to me. Dustin, I was going to raise my hand, but I don't. Zoom has changed a little bit, I think, on me.
Well, if you'd like to go to a specific section, I'm happy to jump.
I did want to talk about chapter 49. I'd looked at the chapters I'd done, gone through 7, 8, 9, and 49. And then on 49, I just wanted to make sure all I'm seeing in the existing amendments report is the note to keep inserted chapter 49. But we had some changes that we'd gone over. Oh, okay. Okay. I was missing that for some reason. 51. Okay.
Yeah, so we have all the stuff that we had in the Word document here included in here. And I do believe that the content here is updated to include the modifications that you were looking at doing here as well.
I see it now. I'll check that as we discuss. There was a note on 49 up at toward the top of the table, row 60. And so that's
row 60.
Yeah. So when I was first looking at it yesterday, I'd seen that. So yeah, if you can go up to row 60.
That's quite a ways up there.
Maybe that was just an errant. Yeah. I didn't make it all the way to the end and see that 49 was down there where it should be. But so yeah, maybe what's up here at the top is not intended to be up there.
Oh,
Yeah, see what I
yeah.
mean?
So this is for the preface and the
Oh,
table
okay,
of contents.
got it. All right, thank you, Justin.
No worries.
I'm good. I've checked my chapters and good, and I'll look at 49 right now.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they'd want to jump to? All right. Then I'm gonna cruise through the preface here real quick and just try to summarize what I have going on in this one. Pretty much the changes here in the preface and table of contents are just updating to our implementation dates. Excuse me, I'm got some digestion issues happening here. The remainder of the updates are just editorial to update to our 2024 code cycle dates and information here. So for example, our adoption date's not quite decided yet. We have some targets. This phone number is no longer valid here, and just cruising through. Next update cycle is going to be for the 2020 or current in 2026 for, sorry, the fees. As far as our table of contents, we have included chapter 49. Our authority section remains the same. And if anybody wants to jump in, go ahead and start talking, or use the raise hand function. I should be able to spot that out of the corner of my eye here. For our 5154 A002 purpose, no changes. For 003, updating to 2024. 007, no changes. For 008, we want to modify to the new implementation date as set right now. And that kind of clears us with that preface section. In chapter 1, for our First Amendment in 105, we're looking at repealing that as the model code addresses the language. For 105 again, keep the existing amendment here. For mobile food preparation vehicles, modify just a little bit in here. For 105 .6.25 or .26 now, keep the new amendment with the new numbering. There's the same amendment with new numbering, sorry. That clears us for chapter 1. For chapter 2, for the most part, all the definitions are going to be maintained. We have some review for the IBC language for correlation work to do a little bit later on in our cycle. It's just a note for some future work. For emergency responder communication systems, we're going to repeal that one. Repeal the frequency. And all of these ones here in this section are model code updates that take care of our amendments, so we no longer need them in those sections. And looks like for the remainder of chapter 2, we're going to keep the amendments except for powered micro mobility devices. And that's the end of chapter 2. Chapter 3, we're looking at repealing some stuff here, or suggesting the repeal of it. 2021 chapter 320 was additive manufacturing. We're considering, or have the suggestion to consider amending to include a 2024 chapter 19. And we have a note to check the ICC errata on that. And repeal the amendment in section 301.2 for permits. That doesn't look right to me. Okay. Repeal that section. 307.21, maintain. I think what I'm gonna do to kind of speed through a little bit more is, if we're maintaining the existing amendment, I'm gonna just kind of scroll by it. We'll look at the modifications and repeal suggestions here, moving forward. So for recreational fires, we're looking to modify the existing amendment to include an altered model code language, with some, stuff in quotations here that's been included as a suggestion. We're looking to repeal the amendment in 314.4. Model code language is, substantially the same as our amendment, minus some, editorial differences. We have, mobile food preparation vehicles, to repeal. This reserve section is moved to chapter 41. So we're looking to change 54A 03119 to reserved, because the section's moved to a new chapter. In 320.1, we're looking to repeal the existing amendment, as the model code language takes care of that one. Same for 320.2, 320.3, 320.4, 320.4.1, 320.4.2. And also 320.4.2.1, 320.4.2.2. It's like most of 320 is getting repealed because they picked up our model, our amendment language in here. That's the end of chapter 3. Chapter 4, maintaining amendments. 403.10.6 for buildings with lithium ion or lithium metal batteries. Repeal the existing amendment. Model language clarifies and expands on the Washington Amendment language. So we have we have the amendment language here on the top. We have the model language with some of the amendment stuff, what would be different in our amendment put in there, with the new language. So looking to repeal that one. With this one, we have consider a repeal of this section by the tag. The model code language is for 500 people instead of 1,000. And it was just consider a repeal recommended by the tag here. Anybody have any additional thoughts on crowd managers for gatherings exceeding 1,000 people? Seeing,
As I recall, the discussion was just to made up with the I-code language rather than to reduce that threshold to 500.
yes. And Ken, I see your hand up. I'm marking you as present now.
Yeah, present for a short period of time. And I don't know if you already brought this up, but when we say consider repeal recommended by tag, does everybody understand like who's going to put that together? If they do, is it going to be a new code change proposal, or is it just going to go straight to council? How's that going to be done so everybody knows?
That would be a proposal put forward by our tag, and we don't have folks assigned to do that or anything, but so.
But are you assuming it will be staff doing it or an individual from the tag doing it?
I would hope that it's going to be someone for the tag doing it at this point in time at the moment, with the short staffing that we have at the moment. If we get some more folks in here, I'm happy to write some proposals on some of these recommendations as well.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So this one, it's a modification to add and uses after occupancies in the first sentence. Uses in here. I don't have a comment on why that's recommended or in there. So Ken, since you're just joining us, I'm anything that we're maintaining the existing amendment, I'm just cruising by. Anything we're recommending modifications or repeal on is where I'm stopping here. So in 510.1, emergency responder communications enhancement systems in new buildings, we have the recommendation to repeal the existing amendment and review of the new exception addition here. The model code language picked up a lot of our or our amendment language. Same here for 510.2, 510.3. Same, looks like 510.4 and 4.1. 510.4.2 and 4.2.1, 4.2.2 and 4.2.3 are all picked up by model code language. Let's keep it. 510, 426, 427, and 428 got picked up by model code language. That looks goofy. I don't know why it's dragging slow. Sorry, guys. Okay. FCC compliance repeal got picked up by model code language. 510.6 repeal picked up by model language. 562 same. 563 same. On 606.2.1, we have keep the amendment and to correlate with the mechanical tag. Let me pull up the information on that real quick. So on 606.2.1, the language in the mechanical code from feedback from that group is the same as this amendment, and they are recommending to keep the amendment as well. So I'm going to put in here that the mechanical code is keeping the same amendment. Okay. That's the end of chapter 6. In chapter 7, there's an old WAC that's reserved at the moment, so no amendments in chapter 7. In chapter 8, maintaining all the amendments as is within that chapter. Chapter 9. Gonna repeal the existing amendment. The new model code language picks up the lithium ion language we had in that one. .2.3, keep the existing amendment and modify. Minimize unnecessary language, i.e. shall not be ICC language versus are not previous state amendment language. So the only one there. In 907.2.6.1, repeal this amendment. The current model language picks that one up. suggest modifying the state amendment to remove this effective date in here, July 2018. Same for 907.11.1 through 11.2. For 915.1.1, modify the existing amendment in one with the previous exception one, aligned with the 2024 IFC updated language. Adds the requirement for all group R2 occupancies, with the exception of R2 college dormitories, and two previous exception number 2 languages addressed by the 2024 changes. Walker.
So on the carbon monoxide requirements in general, with all of the changes that the model code language had, I thought that we were tracking sort of further review.
Further review needed?
I thought so, yeah.
I am happy to change that in here, or put the note in here that further review is needed with the model code, and that might be also included in the significant changes report, but it would
Okay.
probably be a good thing to point it here as well.
And then, yeah, and then correlation with BTAG, I believe is, yeah, this is a chapter in common. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. All right, moving on, and that's for all of the carbon monoxide sections in here.
Yeah, all of 915.
So in 915.5.1, our amendment language has been picked up by model code. Same thing for 15.5.2 and 15.6. Wax not 54A-0916 and 0918 are reserved. That brings us to chapter 10. In chapter 10, 1004.5, looking to repeal. The model code is the same as our amendment. Same for 1004.5.1. Looks like that got cut in a funny way there. In 1006.3.4, repeal the state amendments. Want to coordinate with the building tag, and the comment was that it seems to not be needed. And then also I wanted to note that we have the legislative single exits work we're supposed to be doing with this one as well. Hold on. Okay. On 1009.8, we have a repeal the existing amendment and coordinate with the building tags seems not to be needed as well on this one. I think that at our last group where we talked about this one, we were at a consensus that the amendment's not needed to achieve the same regulatory effect. Ten 10.3.4 repeal. The model code language is the same as our amendment language. In 1014.2.3, model code language is the same as our amendment language. And 1015.2 is the same here. The model code language is the same. Sorry, I'm trying to.
So Dustin, it's Ken, when I was trying to do the correlation with the 1010.2.13 between the IFC and IBC. And
Okay.
I did do some matching so it looks the same. So there will needs to still be some local, maybe not, just has to be a change to it because the number there's a number 7 now. I guess it references to a number 6 in that laundry list, and it's going to actually be number 7 now in the
Okay.
exception. So I'll show it to you when I'm done with it.
That was what was this code section again?
1010.2.13 and the exceptions and also the laundry list. I just correlated it with the IBC one so it looks the same, and then just updated where it says items 1 through 4 and 6 was our amendment. It's going to be and 7. And then I also tweaked the building code one a little bit too, so it matches up because they just read differently.
So,
But I'm going to guess that's not an actually, I don't know if you're going to consider it editorial or not, just to rearrange the wording and numbering.
I don't think it would be too bad, but you've picked it up that I don't have 1010.2. I show it as .14 in the 21 code. Is it .13 in the 24?
Hold on, I want to make sure you're in the right. I'm under controlled egress doors in group I1 and I2. So
Right.
it's 1010.2.13. So there's some
Okay.
yeah. So you got to go scroll down further.
Yeah, it's not in here, is I guess.
Oh, you don't have a 1010.2.13?
No, I don't. And of
Because
course,
we have. I thought we had an existing amendment in there.
we do. It's missed in this report.
Okay.
All right. And we need to modify that one, Ken?
Yeah, so it's kind of been reorg, I guess, like there's a number 7 now is to match the building code language. And then the exceptions where it said and 6 referencing above is going to be now and 7. I don't know how to how to explain it without showing it, but it's part of that correlation between the IBC and IFC.
It's the number 6 is changing to 7 pretty much.
Yeah. And I'm just going to see what I made the notes on the chapter 10 building one.
Let me put one
10,
more
10.
cell in here. Got too many windows open.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is number 6 is going to say all clinical staff shall have the keys, codes, or other means necessary to operate the controlled egress electrical locking systems. Number 7 will say there is a system such as a keypad and code in place that allows visitors, staff persons, and appropriate residents to exit. Instructions for exiting shall be posted within 6 feet of the door. That's going to be the state amendment will be number 7. So that number 6 will just get renumbered.
Okay. I've managed to freeze up my computer here while I'm messing with
right.
stuff. So give me one moment while it tries to catch back up. Okay.
So the number, yeah, it's so like the all clinical staff number 7 becomes number 6.
Okay. Got it. It's not doing its thing for me. Mhm.
And then I know you're waiting for things, but also in the exceptions, there's language that comes from the building code after in exception number 1.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, there's some additional language that we're just not even showing here. It's supposed to say psychiatric or cognitive treatment area. And then the state adds in the building code, provide that all clinical staff have the keys, codes, or other means necessary to operate the locking devices.
Yeah, I've closed out everything except for this meeting and this document. It's not catching up with me.
Well, maybe it's time for a break then.
I think it's just because these are larger than most of the spreadsheets we play with, and so it's got to think about the whole document before it decides it wants to do anything. I need some of that Jeopardy music to play at the moment while we wait. So apologies, guys. I'm not sure what to do here.
Megabyte spreadsheet. Didn't think it would take that long.
Yep.
Are you going to lose information if you kill it?
Just a little bit, but not a ton. There was some legislative stuff. I haven't been taking notes on the sections I was marking up on as we go.
It's recorded, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Oh, we'll restart the program. Might take several minutes. Awesome.
I just cancel that and then
There
it
you go.
dies. Yeah, it's not worth waiting for Microsoft to figure it out.
Yep. All right. Give me one moment while I get this back open. Let's see. All right. Yeah, so it looks like in this one. Okay. This one's just missing that snip I was trying to put in there. So Ken, when we're talking about this one again, so I'm looking at the stuff from our Word document here. It's 6. Can we?
No. You need to, you're in the wrong section. You need, it's the 10.10.2.13. The title of it's controlled egress doors in group I1 and I2.
Yes.
There you go.
So can you help me
So
modify this real quick?
yeah, so your number 7, you're gonna have a new number 7.
Okay.
So you just, there you go. And the new number 7 will be, there is a system, comma, such as a keypad and code, comma, in place that allows visitors, comma, staff persons and appropriate residents to exit, period. Staff persons and appropriate residents to exit, period. And then continuing, instructions for exiting shall be posted within 6 feet of the door. Within 6 feet of the door.
I think you
Then,
need to remove that S from the exit, on exits on that first sentence, correct? Residents to exit.
yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Yep. And then in the exceptions, yeah, after you highlight that green or whatever you want to do. In the exceptions, it's going to say, instead of items 1 through 4, then you're going to say comma and 7, comma. And then after the word psychiatric, there's base code language. Oh, no, you got it there, or calculate treatment areas. Okay. So after treatment area, you're going to put a comma and write provided that all clinical staff shall have the keys, comma, codes, or other means necessary to operate the locking devices. So from the comma to the S in devices would be your green.
Okay.
And then on item 2, it'll be items 1 through 4, and then comma and 7, comma. And there you go. That will,
Okay.
and then
So
it
if
ends up that you'll end up having to do the same thing in the building code to match it up.
Okay. Give me 2 seconds here. There you go. Hoping this doesn't lock me up like I did last time. .2.13. Yeah. See. Okay. Nope. Missed the wrong. Sorry. Okay. I think we have that one caught now. Sound looking good, Ken, and to the group.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And in 10.10.3.4, the model language takes care of our existing amendment.
Okay, I'm going to stop you on 10.11.17.
Okay.
Okay, so 10.11.17 is a fire code amendment, but that language is actually going to need to be added in 10.11.1 as exception number 2. That's where it's in the building code. So I put it in, I said added to correlate with Washington IBC and remove 10.11.17 as is captured here now. So we don't need a 10.11.17 just in the fire code. The language, the exception number 2 in 10.11.1 in the building code should suffice, and that includes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So we won't need. So we want to change this one to repeal the existing amendment because it is captured in the IBC language.
No, well, we kind of have to say relocate the existing amendment to correlate with the IBC into 1011.1 exception number 2. So relocate to 1011.1 exception number 2 to correlate with the Washington Building Code.
Okay, so this would be a modify. So does that cover it here? So if we're pulling this to
Yeah,
1011,
that should cover it. I mean, there'll be other little, like we have to add an S after exception. We have to do that in the building code too, and then making sure we add the number 1 on the fire code side too to the existing exception.
okay.
Little tweaks.
And 1014.2.3, the new model code language is the same as our state amendment. Same as 1015.2. That's the end of chapter 10. We're in chapter 11 now, 1103.2. We have the model code language is the same as our amendment language. What happened here? Sorry. In 1201.1, repeal the amendment. It's the same as the model code language. Same as 1201.3. I'm not sure what the comment about the remove the second sentence of the state amendment is on here. Pull up that Word document. I don't have a comment on here. Does anybody have a comment on why we want to remove the second sentence of the amendment in here? And 12, and Quinn's not here today. Okay. In 1206.1, model code language is the same as the amendment language. Same for 1206.5, 1206.6.3, 1206.6.3.1. Ray.
Yeah, thank you. I need to step out for another meeting. Am I going to be affecting a quorum if I miss a vote?
I don't think so, but let me just double check real quick. No, we're good on the quorum if you take a break for a moment.
Thank you so much. I'll be back in a bit.
Thanks, Ray. So in 1207, we had a lot of movement in this chapter for the fire code, and the tag commentary on this one was that we need to reevaluate the whole section, and that we need a proposal to reorganize the amendments in this section to align with the organization of the 2024 code. So we don't have the whole section pasted in here since we are anticipating some more movement in there as well. 13 through 19 are reserved chapters in the model code. Chapter 20 contains no amendments. Same for 21, 22, and 23. In chapter 24, the model code language picks up the content of our amendment. Chapter 25 has no amendments. Same for 26 and 27, 28, 29, and 30. In chapter 31, correlate change in code section only. That's goofy looking to me. Sorry. Code amendment still valid. So we need to change that to keep the amendment. And we did chapter 31. Looks like Quinn as well. Let me see if I can get that chapter open and see if there's a note in there. I've got it popped open and I don't have a note on there for this chapter. For 3106, I do believe that this is a new code section, and we have it labeled for further review. Of course, I closed out the chapter right after I was done with that one. All right, 3106, the whole section's brand new. Just so you guys can check it out in here. So we need to further review that, see if there's any amendments we might want to make into it, and any amendments would need proposals. Oh, there it is, sorry. In chapter 32, no amendments. Chapter 33, this one, most of these are going away because the model code picks up the state amendment language. For 3303.3 number 6, keep the state amendment. The model code section reference is incorrect. Same for 3303.3 number 9. I guess all these are sized incorrectly just a little bit, so apologies while I mess with these. And there's a lot of modifications in this chapter, or there were. All right, that's the end of chapter 33. Most of those amendments were going away because of the model code language being identical. No amendments in chapter 34, no amendments in chapter 35. In chapter 36, looking to repeal 3601.3. It is contained within section 105 here, so we no longer need that section. That's the end of 36. Looking at 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. We have no amendments within those chapters. 42 through 48, or well, through 49 are reserved in the model code. Chapter 49, Washington uses for the fixed guideway, transit, and passenger rail systems. Walker, since you brought it up a little earlier, is there anything you want to add to this section while we're here?
Nope, I gave it a run through while we were going through, and it looks like everything is here correctly.
10-4. And most of our section 49 or chapter 49 just makes modifications to NFPA 130. In chapter 50, we have no amendments. Chapter 51, or no, chapter 50 is reserved. Chapter 51, we have no amendments. Chapter 52 is reserved. Chapter 53, we have one amendment to maintain. Chapter 54, we have no amendments. 55, no amendments. 56, no suggestions to change any amendments, just keep those. 57, 07.1.1, that is not supposed to be there. Feel like I'm breaking it again. Okay. 5704.2.1, keep the existing amendment. That is the wrong color. State amendment numbering is incorrect. It should be. We're going to modify. And okay. Then modifying 5706.5.4.5. The 2024 code adds class 1 liquids, and the existing state amendment adds number 12 to the list. Text to remove last sentence. Okay. Okay. On this one, keep the state amendment as modified with the blue text in there added to it. Or it looks like the tag recommendation was to use the model code instead of the state amendment. Do we have any opinions on that for 5707.1.1? Hugo.
Yeah, sorry. Back to 39, there were some amendments that I recalled for the extraction.
First, chapter 39.
Yeah, there were some minors.
Okay, give me one moment here.
Oh, shoot.
So I'm looking at the wax right now, and we have WAC 54A-3900 and 3904, which are completely reserved. So we have no existing state amendments in those chapters.
No existing. Okay.
Yeah. So there were amendments in the past. I'm not sure how long ago they were there, but they're not there for the 2021.
All right. Thanks.
No worries. Does anybody have any comments on 5707.1.1? Or we like the use the model code language in here and maybe repeal that amendment? Yeah. This one, we got some renumbering of these sections here for 5707.2. Repeal the existing state amendment because it's the same as the model code language. (5707.2.1). So we have the terminology type 1 mobile fueling devices, and it looks like the code has shifted to tier 1 or tier 2 devices, and looks like the recommendation is to repeal the amendment to move to that language as well. 5707.2.2 do not need the language in the IFC. When I first started with the SBCC, Stoyan indicated maybe that some of these sections were included in the amendment language to just show that the subsequent sections that do contain amendments are just, there's a full picture painted in the WAC. I'm not sure how accurate that statement is, but I think that I remember when I was drafting the 2021 codes that there was several of these that are the exact same as the model code language. Don't freeze on me. We're almost there. I hope I didn't break it again. Right. The auto recovered of the auto recovered. Okay. Lost a little bit here. All right. Looks like 5707.4 is the same as the model language, same as 5707.4.1 through 5707.6.4. It looks like we have all that listed right out here. 5707.6.6, it's the same as the model language. In 58, 59, 60, 61, and 62, 63, 64, 66, and 67, we have no amendments. 68 through 79 are reserved chapters in the model code. And in 80, I don't know why I have it marked as no amendments, because I don't believe that's correct. Am I right, Dave Cocut?
That is correct. There are amendments to chapter 80.
That is my bad. I think I may have just missed dropping them in there at the end of this as I was making it. So give me just one moment. So for whatever reason, I am missing existing amendments in chapter 80 on this report. Here, there's another document floating somewhere. So let's see. Couple more. Okay. So Dave, since I don't have the luxury of having that spreadsheet open and readily available for me, I do have your Word document here though. Let me check that one.
Yes, I'll show we were striking a couple of the changes, and the personal mobile devices had a change of numbering. It went from 3, we guys going to go to 322.3.
Okay. So they all got updated to 2022. So except 319. So as far as the NFPA 1322, do we have any changes we want to make in this one by chance?
Nope.
Okay. Let me side by side these. NFPA 33-18, updating amendment to 2024 edition. With me. (96-21). On this one, what did you have for our change here?
I think we had the same consideration of going to the 2024 reference. That's what we just have checked.
Okay. Yes, 96-21. And so there you think there's a 2024 version of this standard?
And I think that's actually down right below it on the sheet
Oh,
there.
sure enough. Oh, I see what you mean. So our state amendment needs to just be updated to this one. And do we need to mess with any of the code section numbering in the where it's referenced in the body of the code in here?
I don't remember if I even looked at that. I don't think so.
Okay. (30-20). Update to the 23. So we maintain the standard to the 23.
I think the standard was the 20, and we were wanting to bump it to the 23.
Okay. Mission. UL 142A. Just maintain that one, 142A.
Correct.
What? Two, 7, 2. No longer needed.
There's a numbering change. Looks like it went from 323.2 to 322.3, or this correction.
Okay. I mean, could we use the model code language on this one?
I think it's the wrong reference. I think it may have been an error, and I'm not sure if it was an error, but we have the wrong reference in it.
Okay.
But that is the new model code language, so.
Two, 8, 4, 9, 2020.
And same situation there with
Same
the,
thing. Yeah. Okay, so this is that. And the section is chapter 80. Okay. I think that covers that. Okay. So we should be back in business on 80. I think that I can probably change these all green real quick. Alrighty, so that is the end of our existing amendments review document. Does anybody have any sections they'd like to revisit real quick? I'm seeing no hands. So I guess that would put us in a position to make a motion to approve this for submission to our BFRP committee, or entertain other motions as appropriate.
Lance Dahl, I would make that motion to move to committee.
Okay,
Walker Danucci, I will second.
Is there any further discussion on the existing amendments report? I'd like to do a roll call vote on this one, just for posterity on this. Give me one moment. I got to get my sheet up. All right. Move that there. All right. So, doing the roll call vote, we have Jacob Liddycoat, Jake, are you still with us?
Yep, sorry about that.
No worries. Is that an aye or a nay on the move into the committee?
Aye.
All righty. Next, Ray Shipman. He took a break. I see him in the guest list though. Ray, are you still with us? Okay, we'll come back to him. Let me highlight the cell. Next, Ken Brulette. He's no longer online with us. Okay, next, Hugo Sotelo.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, Bill Mybush.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, Ricky Campbell.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, Walker Danucci.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, Sean Morgan.
Aye.
Thank you. Seth Henderson.
Aye.
Thank you. David Mao. David, are you still with us? Dave, Zachary Tuck, you are the alternate.
Aye.
Thank you. And Lance Dahl.
Aye.
Thank you. So going back to Ray Shipman, are you with us to cast a vote? All right, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The motion passes to move this report to our committee's meetings that we'll be having next week. All right. Thank you guys for the work on that one. Let me save and hopefully not crash my system. All right. There we go. Now then, for our existing amendments report, the significant changes report. For this one, most of the model code language changes came with recommendations to adopt and include in our adoption there. And so as I scroll through this one, my plan will be to just stop at the sections where the tag has identified that we would potentially like an amendment for that section. And before I get rolling on it, I will just make a call. Does anybody have any sections they would like to jump to before we scroll through the document? All right, well, with that one, we will continue scrolling. So all the ones that have amendments identified as needed, they're highlighted yellow with a yes in the box. So I will just scroll through semi-slowly. And if anybody wants to speak on a section, just go ahead and speak up or raise your hand. I'll be monitoring for the hand raising. So in 104.2.3, we have some amendments there. It moved from 104.10 with a new exception. The recommendation is to strike the exception with an amendment here. Everybody like that posture on this section? Thank you, Dave. In 104.2.4.2 for natural disasters, a new section has been added and just needs additional review. We have in here to double check on if there's existing Washington laws to reference. But this new section allows the fire code official to make special policies regarding the code, with an example given of during COVID, some of those special provisions that we may or may not have used. 105.5.56 temporary heating or cooking in wildfire risk areas is a new section. We have identified that it should get an amendment in suggesting to replace local regulations with the fire code official. So where it says local regulations right here, where required by the local fire code, by the fire code official, operational permit is required, etc. It's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2, we identified no significant changes. Chapter 3, no new amendments needed for those significant changes identified. Chapter 4, no amendments for significant changes. In chapter 5, 503.1 through 503.4.1. Go. In the amendments section, these are not adopted, but the recommendation is to review this section and maintain the not adoption status. For section 510, recommend to match the title from the model code into the WAC. I think that got taken care of in the model code. So I don't recall if we recommended maintaining amendment in this section. Oh, it's just the title for the section of 510, not 510.1 or anything. Sorry. It's the end of chapter 5. In chapter 6, no significant changes were identified. In chapter 7, no recommended amendments to significant changes. Chapter 8 is the same, no recommended amendments to those changes. Table 903.2.11.6. Additional required fire protection systems. I don't think that's correct. It's no table. It's 902.11.6.
I believe it was a row that was added to the table previously, but
Yeah.
now the model codes picked that up.
Oh, so we've marked it as needs a change to amendment, so
I think we're just deleting the amendment, allow the
yeah.
model code language to stand. Yeah.
And 915.1.1, more carbon monoxide stuff. I think that we identified this one as needing some amendment in here as well. Just affecting the existing amendment.
Yes, and I believe we're flagging further review for 915.
That's the end of chapter 9. In chapter 10, no significant changes were identified. In chapter 11, section 1103.2, for fire safety requirements for existing buildings. For this one, they got a an amendment is needed for this section. And I don't have any comments on why it's needed. There's some interesting stuff. Okay. These might be stuff that we had put in here a little bit in the wrong spot. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so these couple rows here got shifted over to our existing amendments report. And they're just included in here by mistake. Okay, 1103.9, carbon monoxide alarms. No amendment needed. It's another one. I think this one we had some mistakes when we were drafting this. This got included by accident. This is an existing amendment section. Brings us to the end of chapter 11 for energy storage. In chapter 12, we have the whole chapter needs a review, since there's been lots of changes in there. Chapter 13, 14 through 19, reserved in the model code. Chapter 20, no significant changes. Same for 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 as a reserved chapter. 26, no significant changes. 27, no changes. 28, no changes. 29, no changes. Oh, these. Okay. So for chapter 31, inflatable amusement devices, the whole section needs further review and needs amendment as identified in our previous section. So maybe that one was also included in our existing amendment section there. Chapter 32 through 38, no significant changes identified. Sure, I can see people's hands if they raise them. Chapter 39 in section 3901.1 needs a proposal needed an additional review. The comment is to determine if the exception is acceptable for greenhouses. (3905.3) for ventilation, determine if the exception should be modified to include approved by the fire code official per 104.2.3, proposal needed and additional review. I know. Just make sure I'm catching everything that's supposed to be there. It looks like I should have pulled a different snip here. So 1 second. Great. Okay, got it. Oh, this is where it breaks for the second part 2, chapter 40 and 4004.4, we have a yes for proposal needed, with a recommendation of striking bulk or defining the term for use in this section. So not necessarily a significant change, but a section we've identified for a potential work. All right, in section 4101.1, define temporary may need a definition section added or utilize and insert / adopt. So further defining temporary in here as a consideration on here. Oh, no, 1.7. 4101.8, we have yes, recommend adding refueling in 20 feet is consistent with 3108.13.3, refueling requirements from tents or membrane structures. I got these sections highlighted as the offending sections that need some work. For 4101.9, we have a yes in here. We have a Word document for recommendation. Let me pull that up. With the recommendation to add a number 4. So let me draw that down. Okay. 4104.2, moved section from 308.1.4 was not adopted. It needs to remain not adopted in new location. So we need a proposal for that one. 4104.4, get there. There's a recommendation in the Word document that's likely not here. There we go, we got it. 4105.1.2, yes. So we have the recommendation here in gray. We have 4106.4.2. with a yes. Recommend adding fire extinguisher for section 9. Let's make that there. Recommend removing this section. Same with this one. And new section, no concerns. Let's see, 4106.5. I'm going to change this one to no. Oops. Nope. Recommend new amendment to take into consideration solid fuel burning, such as mobile pizza ovens located within a vehicle, or determine if we do not allow these types of food trucks to be in operation. Concerns with discarded smoldering embers. Solid fuel. 4106.7 for oven. Consideration for the installation requirement of wood burning ovens using UL 2126 requirements. So a proposal might need to be coming on that one. Have some reserved chapters 42 through 48. On chapter 49, no significant changes identified. Chapter 50 for hazardous materials. There's a new table, table 5003.1.1 parentheses 5. We identified no amendment needed, but to potentially expect proposals to come in for that. And here's what that table looks like. Big long table. For this one here, 5003.11.2.1, all these did I miss these? I think I missed putting these in here. So, that one. Mm. Sorry, this is taking a little bit of time. Okay, I got all that in there for 5003 for that new section. We have a cost commentary on the whole section here. But no amendments identified as being needed for those sections. 51 and 52 are reserved. In chapter 53, looks like they're making a recommendation to go back to the model code. So that is a change to one of our amendments. There, highlight those. Chapter 54 and 55, 56, 57, no significant changes. For 58, we have a new section, on-demand hydrogen mobile fueling operations. Proposals may come in for this section with no amendments recommended by the tag. We'll let the industry drive those amendments. 59, we have no amendments and no significant changes. Chapter 60, no significant changes identified. 61 for section 6801. We have an amendment needed or identified to be needed. So general storage, handling, and transportation of liquefied petroleum gas and installation. So pertinent to systems for such uses shall comply with this chapter and NFPA 58. Properties of LP gas shall be determined in accordance with Appendix B of NFPA 58 with an exception. The use and storage of listed propane-fired barbecue grills on R2 decks and balconies with an approved container not exceeding a water capacity of 20 pounds that maintain a minimum clearance of 18 inches on all sides unless listed for lesser clearances. Let me open up that chapter and put some stuff in there. 6108. So Dave, it looks like we have an existing amendment here for this section. Are we recommending going back to model code, or what was the recommendation on this one?
I think Lance did this chapter.
Oh, I have it labeled edits with your name on it.
Yeah, I gave he didn't have one, so I gave him one so we have something to do.
Okay, no worries.
No problem.
I'm trying to remember.
It looks like our amendment just replaces the entire section 6108.1. I think this might be a holdover from the existing amendments report, because all of this looks like it's just the same existing amendment.
Yes, I think that is correct.
Okay. I'm going to kill that line. If it lets me. Uh, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, and 67. No significant changes. 68 through 79 are reserved. And in 80, the amendment to remove the requirements for sprinklers in hydraulic elevator pits. So NFPA is in the process of revising the 2025 edition and will be removing the elevator pit sprinkler requirement. And that's all I have for significant changes in chapter 80. So that brings us to the end of the book once again. Is there any sections that we would like to go back and revisit? All right, then we are in a position to entertain a motion to move this report to the committees.
Motion to move this report to the committees. Hugo Sotelo.
Thank you, Hugo. Do we have a second?
I will second Walker Danucci.
Thank you, Walker. Is there any further discussion on moving the significant changes report to the committees? Hearing no voices, seeing no hands. Let me get my roll call sheet back up here. All right, so kicking it off with the votes. Jacob Liddycoat,
Approved.
thank you. Ray Shipman,
Yes.
thank you. Ken Brulette is back with us. Ken, I didn't catch your vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Hugo Sotelo,
Aye.
thank you. Bill Nybush,
Approved.
thank you. Ricky Campbell,
Aye.
thank you. Walker Danucci,
Aye.
thank you. Sean Morgan,
Aye.
thank you. Samir Mokashi. I thought I saw him in here just a little bit ago, but he's not here anymore. So Seth Henderson, I'm not seeing Seth here as well. David Mao,
Aye.
thank you. And last but not least, Lance Dahl.
Aye.
Thank you. With that vote, we can move this report to the committee. And I would like to thank everybody for their time and work that they put in on this. And yeah, is there anything else anybody would like to have the floor a little bit? We got some time. I'd like to give you back as much as possible, but any comments on the process? If there's I guess suggestions for improvements or things you liked about the process this time that maybe wasn't there last time, I'm open to comments on the process so far.
Well, Dustin, what I noticed from last several times is it's nice to have a rolling document that we have. So we have the Word document that's going along, because that's something that we would do a lot of work at the tag. And it wasn't being properly documented. And this way we're getting things in the system. We're still finding a little bit of things that we've missed here, but we're catching almost everything here so that it's following through as we're going to do the development and the next step. So that makes things a little bit easier at the end of trying to correlate things to make sure that everything has been covered. So I think this has been, it's long, but it's pretty critical to have a good document to work with throughout the rest of this process.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear. It seems like it's like it's long, but it's a useful use of our time. So I like that. And I see a thumbs up from Walker. And
Yeah, no, this process is great. I'm pretty amazed actually that we got through it all in a little over 2 hours. So great.
yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned here this week. We'll be working with the committee chairs and stuff to solidify the dates for those meetings. We're looking probably in the Monday through Wednesday range, so we can keep the council meeting that we're going to be calling within July. If we go to Thursday or Friday next week for the committee, we might end up having a council meeting on the 1st or 2nd of August, and I'm trying to avoid that. But it all just kind of depends on where we fall with the committee meetings at this point. So once again, I want to thank and applaud everybody here for their input and work on this. And Ricky, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just curious, Dustin, deadlines for, when the public has amendments they want to propose, or how that process works. And then are we following up with the special hazard group?
So as far as deadlines for amendments, proposals to come in will be set
From the public.
From the public and from us as well. Is going to be the September 20th, or it might be the 19th. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what we have published in that schedule. but I believe it's the 19th, and we have a council meeting the day after to direct those amendment or those proposals back down to the tags for working at that point. And then as far as that work group or the other section, I'm sorry, did we have something set up on that one? I'm just, it's escaping me at the moment.
No, we didn't. I just been busy with some family stuff, but I am gonna reach out to Jamie and talk to him, and maybe we can come up with something to propose to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So any proposals that we need to do? So I guess future work for the tag, do we want to maybe here in August at some point have 1 or 2 meetings to look at these sections we're looking at, some proposals and work on, and maybe make some more assignments for folks to put together some proposals for us?
Yeah, I'm up for that. I mean, I don't know how everybody's schedule is,
Yeah.
but I got a couple things that I'd like to address.
Okay. Well, what I will do then is I would like to let the reports kind of phase of our work come to a completion, and so that'll be here at the end of July. And then first thing in August, I'll poll everybody to see what some availability is. We could potentially keep on rolling with the Tuesdays at 2 to 4 time slot to do some amendment or proposal work, and maybe have 2 meetings in August every other week or something like that. But I'll send out a poll early August for everybody to weigh in on what their availability is and see what we can get done there. And then if we can do that work in August, and then we have most of the month of September to finalize all that and get them in and be ready to rock and roll on the review of all the proposals that we get in.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Awesome. So let me just make a note that I promised something and I'm not going to forget it. What happened there? All right. And so as this process concludes, I'll be putting PDFs of these reports with changes out on the website. I will also get these these Excel documents back out to you. I don't know if you guys find them useful for making notes as we run through this stuff. But I'll make them available to you so you guys can edit them. And I think that that's about it. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the order?
No, thanks for the work. I've got to drop off. I've got another meeting to get to.
10-4. Thank you, Lance.
Thank you.
All right, and then back to Dan Young. I want to turn the meeting over to you for the official adjournment.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your help on this. And like I said, coming in late, you guys did a lot of work and I appreciate it. But that being said, just so everybody's aware that next week I go in for knee surgery. So I won't be able to do anything next week because of probably be on drugs. But after that, I will be back and working. So, but anyway, just for a heads up. But then I think if that's it, we're done then. Do we have to do a
Awesome.
motion to end?
No, we just call it adjourned typically.
Okay.
And good luck on the surgery.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
I'd say break a leg, but they're fixing that part.
Yeah, they're already doing that. So.
All righty. Well, thanks again, everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good
Thanks,
day.
everyone.